well. So we're gonna do some finish up the air-to-air this week, potentially next week, and then do some air-to-ground stuff for a couple weeks, and then do some seed stuff for a couple weeks to get ready for the LFE. Um, so tonight, I think most people participated in the most of the air-to-air stuff, but just to recap a little bit. So basically, we were talking about azimuth problems and basically isolating an azimuth problem into focusing on a single group. So for example, if we were a 3 or a 4 ship, or sorry, a 2 or a 4 ship coming from the south, and then we had hostile aircraft coming from the north in the azimuth position, then we would basically isolate on one group, engage the one group, and then come out and engage the other group after that. Instead of just continuing to fly north where they have us bracketed, or splitting up into two different directions, reducing our strength in numbers. So that's what we kind of did the first couple of weeks, or a few weeks ago, I guess, for about 3 weeks we did it. And it was, like I say, kind of focusing on the essentially what we're calling it is a single side attack. It's not a single side offset. Single side offset's a little bit different. Whereas this, we're kind of isolating a single side of the group and attacking it. The main thing is that we're not, when we're flying towards the group, we're not actually flying directly at them. We're putting them on gimbals over this direction to where we're reducing our closure as much as possible and not giving them the first shot. And then once we're at about 30 miles, that's when one of the aircraft would turn in and engage, and the second aircraft would turn in and engage at about 25 miles is what we talked about. So tonight we're not going to be doing a azimuth problem. Let me just erase everything. All right, so everything's gone. So tonight we're going to be doing basically a 4v4. So last time it was a 2v1 or a 4v2 azimuth problem. Tonight's going to be a 4v4, just straight up 4v4. And basically what we're going to do is kind of work on that offset attack a little bit more. So basically, we're similar coming from the south, and we are going to be engaging a 4 ship from the north. And what we want to do is isolate them to one side or the other. So basically, again, we don't want to continue to fly directly at them, giving them potentially the first shot ability. We want to put them on the on gimbals of the radar and basically kind of single side attack. Try to isolate to one side of the formation, putting them on gimbals. And then at 30 miles is still kind of the magic number to have either, if we're a 2 ship, then it would be one of the aircraft turn in and take a loft shot and come out, or in tonight's case, it'll be a 4 ship with one of the elements turning in and engaging, taking basically 2 target track shots at 2 separate aircraft, which means so if 1 and 2 were to turn in, 1 and 2 would sort, hopefully properly to where they're getting 1 missile on each of the 4 aircraft coming at you. So basically at 30 miles, that's when one of the elements, whether it's lead or trail element, turns in, takes their loft shots, and then continues out. And this is the next part is what we want to kind of focus on, which is the group that's not engaging or not doing the initial turn in. They're going to continue off on keeping the group on the gimbals and basically trying to assess and monitor what's happening such that they either turn in and engage if they have to because this group is remaining hot, or let me just erase part of that. Or they continue to bracket them, and then identify if these guys start turning south, then they can kind of turn in and chase them down. Once you identify them potentially turning back and re-engaging, that's where you guys would want to shoot and then come out. By that time, the first element that engaged should be ready to come back in, and now you've got good separation between the two elements, and you kind of got them in a bad position. So it's here that we want to focus on. Basically turning in at 30, getting the element to get its first shots off on all 4 aircraft, and then coming out to the opposite direction to get that separation, and then the second element identifying what's happening with the engagement and turning in when necessary to engage them or press. So timelines, basically, we want to try and pick them up as early as possible. We want to make our commit call at 40 miles. That's the magic number for the commit. And that should be, broadcasted over uniform. So we want to commit at 40 miles. And basically, that's when you start your putting them on gimbals. And then once you get to 30 miles, that's when one of the, lead would have one of the elements turn in. The call for that was, for Viper 1, it's, Vipers commit 40 miles, bullseye, XXXYY, and then it is at 30 miles, it would be, Viper 1 is, do you remember what the call was, Gemma? I can't remember if it was commit or engaging. I think it's engaging. So Viper 1's engaging. You don't have to say where you're engaging because you already made your commit call. So the people in your flight know who you're engaging. That engaging call is called over the local. So it's Viper 1's engaging. He peels off, turns in, takes his loft shot and out. So then it's Viper 1's cranking, and then Viper 1's either defending or beaming, and then Viper 1-3 would be continuing. And then when Viper 1-3 is engaging, that's when Viper 1-3 would call that he's engaging as well. And then Viper 1-1 would want to call if he's recommitting or if he's defensive, and so on and so forth. So does that make any sense to anybody?
Makes plenty of sense. So be a 4-ship spread with the 2 and 4 and a wedge?
Yep. So I think we've only got 7 tonight, right?
Yeah.
So for the second element, what is the range for shooting their missile against the Laker or the remaining group of the enemy guys?
So I mean, there's no hard timeline because it kind of depends on what they're doing. If they're hot on you, then obviously you need to do something. If they're cold on you, you're going to do something else. And that's why, that's kind of one of the big focuses of tonight is seeing if number 3 is able to identify what he's supposed to do. It's similar to when we do the pump and grinder. It's that guy that's pumping that needs to decide if he needs to shoot or if he needs to press. That's the same thing here. It's just more of an offensive type of engagement. So, the timeline would be more of a minimum timeline. We're thinking it's about 20 miles is where, if he's 20 miles from the closest jet, so you remember we're fighting a 4-ship, so, they could end up splitting up to where, you have one guy over here, you got one guy over here, you got one guy here and one guy back here. It's 20 miles to that closest contact is where, he needs to definitely think about getting his shots off and getting out, because that would mean that these guys haven't gone cold, which means they're pressing and they're probably going to be trying to get missiles on you. So at 20 miles would be where you need to crank in, take your shot, and then get out.
By
that time, the lead element or whoever engaged first should be coming back in to potentially support shortly thereafter.
Is that lead element taking 4 shots?
Yep. That's right. It's 2 target track for each aircraft, so that's
Yeah.
1 missile on each. So not the single aircraft is taking 4. Between the element, the 2 aircraft,
Right.
it would be 2 each, and
Right.
that's where it's 2 target track, trying to get it on all, getting missiles on each one.
So it's imperative to, when you say, Viper 1-1's engaging, to sort trail group or to sort west group, to sort left group, whatever you got to say. Make a good brevity call where you want them to sort, and make sure that you guys are on the same track of where you're sorting. Also, the other thing of what he was saying about the second group coming in, don't engage them if they're cold. If they're running and they're 20 miles, that's definitely not a good time to shoot your missile. It's when you start to see them start to turn back in. So if they start their turn, don't wait till they're hot, because then they're going to get a missile off on you. Actually start shooting when they are in the process of turning around. I mean, if you waste a missile because they fake a turn and then go back out, that's fine. But if you wait too late, they're going to get a shot on you and make you defend, and that's when you lose your advantage. Hopefully that clarifies that.
Sort of, as far as the second group, just the if the target is hot, then shoot at 20, and as soon as the second group shoot at it and out, right? Then the first group will be continue to engage with the group.
Potentially. The timing is pretty fast, right? You're only 10 miles. That 30 miles to 20 miles happens pretty quick. So, the first group may still be defensive or may still be beaming the missile, but if they got engaged, but shortly thereafter, then they would be turning in. They'd be clean because the other element would have got their missiles off. Potentially, hopefully, keeping them occupied, allowing the lead element to turn back in and continue to engage them.
I'll guarantee you this: that second group, you will be inside of 20 miles, even if they are cold, before they ever turn out. So don't look at the mileage too much. Look at their condition. If they're turning in hot, start to shoot. If they're not, don't shoot.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember, at the 30 miles, the first group is engaging, okay, and you're going to continue as a second group. You're going to continue in. Not necessarily right at them, but you're going to continue somewhat towards, with
on gimbals.
On gimbals. So you're going to actually be closing in as well. The other group, the enemy group is coming in hot. So by the time the first group shoots, they should probably be shooting at 25 miles. And so by the time the hostiles even react to their missiles, will be 20 miles. So you think about it, that it's the 20 miles is basically just a number.
It's kind of a safe number, right? So if we're engaging MiG-29s with, R-77s, then obviously, that's kind of why it's 20 miles. The MiG-21s, potentially we could go even closer to allow those missiles from the first group to get, further towards the target, causing them to react. Because if you make your decision too soon, then you may be making that decision before they've reacted to the initial shots.
Question on the gimbal.
Yep.
Okay, initially you gimbal by angle off. Then when you're going to take the shot, you turn into them until you have the HUD circle set up, and then you turn off after the shot and gimbal again. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's the crank. Basically, you put the circle in the circle, pitch up for a loft shot, take your shot, and then you crank basically. So in this example, we're turning to the east. We're putting them on gimbals, flowing to the east, and then we're turning back to the north, and then to the taking the shot, and then we're coming off to the west, and basically putting them on the right gimbals, and that's basically the cranking, and then you want to support that missile a little bit. You don't want to support it too much, but you want to support it a little bit to give it some time to get to the target, and have a somewhat decent probability of tracking. And then you want to come out and beam. You don't want to necessarily come out to the south, because then you start making extra separation between the put an X there to kind of indicate not, but because if you come off to the south, then you're making extra distance between you and your other element. You're coming off the south. If you beam, keeping your speed up, You can beam the missiles if they're coming in, and then it's just a short turn to the south, and then potentially back to the north to engage.
So a question on your diagram here specific to the second element. Okay, so this picture would show this line. Second element turns in, takes their shots. Wouldn't you want to go this way? Knowing your first, well, no, you wouldn't want to turn into where your first element was turning. If you turn the other way, in this situation, if your first element is beaming west, let's just say this is north, so you got to know where your first element is and how they're going to turn back, because you don't want to turn into their line of fire, do you?
You don't want to turn the line of fire. I mean, it shouldn't really be their line of fire. This group isn't going to be, so that the element, if they take their shots here, they're not going to be beaming at this point, right? You're too close to beam. You have to basically come south and get out of there, where these guys are coming in this way. So it's not so much that you're going to be turning into where they're coming in at. Coming off this direction, yeah, that gives you more separation, but there's good and bad from having that, right? The bad is that you're further apart, harder to support. The good, like you say, you're not, potentially coming into their missile. You're not dragging any missiles towards them if you are defensive. But I think the mutual support is kind of a better thing, because this distance that would be set up here, I think is already a pretty good distance by having the 30 and the 20 offset. Basically,
Okay.
you're already getting a pretty good separation with these guys beaming to the west and these guys, continuing up, not until 20 and then turning in. You're getting a pretty good separation, allowing these guys to kind of come off left into the south, minimizing that separation for the mutual support.
Okay, so that second element, then after they shoot, they're just going to come around and egress, so to speak, and let the first element back in.
Yeah, because just also think about it. If you're taking a shot at, say, 20 miles, it doesn't take very long for that missile to go pitbull. I mean, basically, you're looking at just a couple of seconds, and the thing's pitbull. By the time you finish cranking and come south, it's probably already MPRF or whatever you call it.
Husky.
Yeah.
So in one of the other things it depends on, for this fight it won't depend on that much, but for other reasons, if you turned away, that would be a good, if let's say the enemy fighter could have his radar on both of you, then it would be a better idea to turn away to separate, so that way the guy can't shoot at all of you. But in this case, you're separated so far that you're already the first element that's had turned semi out is going to be separated enough where they're not going to be able to get shots on you at close range and them at a further range. So turning back towards them is going to help. It's really a fluid situation there. It all depends on what the enemy's doing too. So don't always say I'm going to for surely turn in, turn left, turn right. Figure out what they're doing. Let's say they basically, let's say at 40 miles that group splits and starts doing a massive, causing us a massive azimuth problems, and then basically we got two separate situations we got to deal with. So for this situation, it's they're just going to be flying at us. So this is going to be a basic scenario.
Got it.
All right. Good questions, good discussions, hopefully good answers. Any other questions?
Just one more on TTS mode. I guess you and I kind of emailed on this, Zeke, but I have trouble unsticking the cursor from the primary target. And
I'll tell you why. You need to change your radar speed to 200%. That's how you're going to get it to work.
Yeah,
right?
We talked about that, and I think it's because his frame rates are so fast. They're like 160 or something. You said.
Yeah, mine's set all the way up to still have trouble. The only thing that works for me is to have a TGP on board and have the screen, running.
Oh, well, let me ask you this. So you're doing TWS, right?
No.
So you're doing RWS, okay. So you're locking up one guy, and then you're trying to move the cursor, and the cursor will not move off the first guy, right?
That's correct.
And you have it on radar at 200%?
Yes.
Ah, it's weird.
Yeah.
Try to hold it for a longer period of time, I would say.
Yeah, I've been holding it down, for like 5 seconds. It doesn't move, but if I have a TGP on board, it will on stick.
So your frame rates are too high? You could try VSync, and that'll limit it to 60.
Okay, you think it's because my screen works at 144?
Oh, it's 144 hertz.
Yeah.
So VSync, I think it's called something else when you
Yeah, I've got a G-Sync.
yeah, G-Sync.
I
You
would
have that on or off?
It's on.
So
I would try to figure this out during another time, like with somebody that can actually give you good advice. Maybe checking the BMS forums as well.
Okay, so for tonight, I'll just use like Twiz.
Yeah, you could use Twiz, then you could just TMS left, or sorry, TMS right to switch back and forth.
Okay.
What's the 200?
So if you go into your BMS config, you go to radar, look at radar cursor speed. If you set it to 200, when you're moving the radar cursor around, it moves faster, and it basically that's what, when I had it set at 100, I could never get it off the first target that I had locked up to move it over.
So the first option, cursor speed, it's better to be in 200?
if you have that problem.
Yeah, if you have that problem, that was my first suggestion.
And if you don't have that problem, 75?
You'd probably just the
What are
default
your
or whatever.
preferences? All right. The last thing I want to say, so on the meeting as well, we talked about the tanking qual. So basically, this mission, it's similar to the one we did a few weeks ago. Because we're going to go up, we're going to engage, and then we're going to roll X an hour, and then we're going to go hit the tanker, and then we're going to tank, and then we're going to go back out and push on the new Rolex, and then do the second engagement, and then come back and NRTB. So the tanking portion, if you successfully tank, then you'll get the tanking qual for that qualification for the next 60 days. So just keep that in mind as well.
Hey, mine went away, by the way, just so you know, Zeke.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the plane. Yeah, it's gone now.
took long enough.
So when you do get the qual, you'll see next to your name in the thing, it'll have like a little white airplane. Just like right now, if you look at my name or whatever, you'll see it'll say 72nd and the CMD and the $sign, those three things. But there'll be a little white airplane. That means you're qualified for air AAR. And if that's not there, that means that you need to get somebody, which is your CO or XO of your squadron, to take you up on a mission and qualify you. If you are a CO or XO of a squadron, then you'll need myself, Zeke, or Hamster to do it.